to call this message Noah and the Covenant of God. I've been going through Genesis, looking at some things, noticing things. My greatest strength is noticing what's on the surface, rather than looking deeply into things. Sometimes what's on the surface is pretty deep. So I wanted to start with Genesis 6, starting in verse 17. After the instructions about what to build and how big it's going to be, the dimensions of the ark, what to make it out of, God then tells Noah why he's going to be building this really large boat. I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. So that's the bad news. You just imagine God's given him instructions, and then he says, oh, by the way, I'm going to wipe out all life on earth. But at least you have this boat. But I will establish my covenant with you. This is the first time that the word covenant appears in the scriptures. The first time out of the 310 times the covenant appears all the way through the scriptures. There's a lot of covenant in the Bible. And that's what I wanted to focus on here today. God is a God who makes covenants. So he says to Noah, I will establish my covenant with you. Notice whose covenant it is. It's God's covenant. And you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. I may have mentioned this the last time, but God is very specific about who's getting on this ark. I always thought that God was out there, or telling Noah, go out there, preach, invite everybody onto this ark, and then nobody listened. That's somehow the impression that I've got. But actually, God is very specific. He says, okay, it's going to be you, your sons, and your sons' wives. He's not expecting anybody else to join the party. Very, very small, limited admission. You're to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. To every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and stored away as food for you and for them. So not only does this family get to build a monstrously huge boat, at least God is bringing the animals. At least they don't have to go out and just find all these animals and bring them on board. God is going to do that, which is wonderful. All they have to do is store up provisions for at least a year. That's all. Do all of these animals. That's all they have to do. Just go out there and plant crops, figure out ways of storing the food, keeping the mice out or the rain, all that kind of stuff. Preparing, storing, that's all. It had to be a mammoth undertaking. It's not enough that you have to build a boat, then you have to feed all the animals for all that time. And of course, 8 people. How many animals are there? How are they going to get them all fed? I'm pretty sure that the engineering of that vessel was something that would probably be comparable to how vessels or boats are made now. And the feeding system is probably comparable to what some modern animal feeding systems are. It had to be. How do you get all of that done by 8 people? So it was a big job. It was a huge job. But God promises to establish his covenant with them. I bet you can hardly wait to find out when he establishes that covenant, right? Well, it turns out God doesn't establish his covenant with them until they're coming off of the ark. So what does that tell you? If they hadn't built the ark, there's no covenant. Of course, there's no humanity. Of course, there's no animals. But there's always something that has to be done. God expects certain results. We just prayed the Lord's Prayer. And the line that really hits me is, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." God expects his will to be done on earth as well as it is in heaven. Well, who's going to be doing that will? So we'll go to chapter 8. I talked in some ways about the flood, about the reality of it. It was a long process, lots of sediment, why you have marine sediments of all the mountains in the world, those kinds of things. There obviously was a flood. In chapter 8, verse 15, then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, the birds, the animals, and all the creatures that move along the ground, so they can multiply on the earth and be fruitful and increase in number on it." Anything about that sound familiar? These animals come off the ark because God wants them to increase in number, be fruitful, multiply. Kind of like Genesis chapter 1. So Noah came out, together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, all the animals and all the creatures that move along the ground, and all the birds, everything that moves on land came out of the ark, one kind after another. I want you to notice something about the way Old Testament writers tell stories. Almost always, when you hear God give instructions, you hear very shortly thereafter how those instructions are carried out. You hear that they then did this. It's a storytelling technique from ancient times that we're not as familiar with. But God gives instructions, and then you find out that they actually follow those instructions. Usually. Sometimes not, and there are consequences for that, but that's a different part of the story. Verse 20, then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood, and never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done." So there are two components to this. Do you remember what Adam was told when he eats of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? What is God's punishment? Cursed is the ground. God is now revoking that curse. And he's also realizing that he still wants humanity, even though we're all basically evil. He still wants us around for some reason. How do you like that? And he never again will destroy all the living creatures. Apparently he wants to leave that to us. Just kidding. Wait, we were doing a really good job of destroying the creatures ourselves, so he doesn't have to. In verse 22, so this is what he's been thinking, right? We're given insight into his thought process. Then he says, as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease. So some look at this and say, oh, okay, so now we're going to have seasons. We didn't have seasons before. I don't know about that, but notice that he doesn't put any limits on how long each season is going to be or how short it's going to be. So we Saskatchewanites can realize that sometimes our winter's a little longer But we will have winter. We know that. Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth." Wow, that comes right out of Genesis 1. He's starting over again. He's rebooting the earth, restarting. This is the original reset, as it were. When God does it, it works right. When humans do it, well, not so much. And he says, "The fear and dread of you will fall on all the beasts of the earth, and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground, and on all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands." Sort of like when he says to rule over all the creatures, right? But not the same. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. So we move from fruits in the garden to the green plants and the grains, now to meat. I now give you everything. But you must not eat meat that has its lifeblood still in it. And for your lifeblood, I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal, and from each human being too. I will demand an accounting for the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. I want to concentrate on that demanding an account. This is a term that God uses for us, right? We will have to account for every idle word, for instance. But he's demanding an account from the animals. I wonder, wait a minute, what's going on here? How can you get an account from an animal? Well, this whole mess started from a conversation between a human and a snake. A conversation, right? As the little kid says when somebody reads to him that story. So, what do you think Eve said after the snake said these things? And the little kid says, of course, "There's a fucking snake." we look at that and kind of gloss over, but wait a minute, this thing talked. This is how this whole mess started. So we listen to the talking snake. So why is he including the animals? Why is it demanding an account from the animals? Well, the other animals can talk too. We just don't know what they're saying. So for the fun of it, I turn to Numbers 22. Numbers 22. Starting in verse 21. Now you'll recognize the story. Balaam got up in the morning. Okay, so maybe I better give a little bit of background here. So Balaam has been prophesying good things about Israel, but the kings that hired him wanted to prophesy bad things about Israel. And he, desperately wants the money, but he's not going to get paid unless he's doing the job. So God has told him, look, don't deal with these people anymore. I will allow you, if they come to you, I will allow you to go with them and try this again. But you're only going to tell them what I tell you. So, verse 21. Balaam got up in the morning, saddled his donkey, and went with the Moabite officials. We're not told that they came to him. He goes to them. Wonder why God is upset with him. But God was very angry when he went, and the angel of the Lord stood in the road to oppose him. Balaam was riding on his donkey, and his two servants were with him. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road, and a drawn sword in his hand, it turned off the road onto a field. Balaam beat it to get it back on the road. So here's the funny thing, of course, the donkey is seeing, and the human isn't. How often do you hear stories stories about how animals know that certain things are going to happen, right? They know that the earthquake is coming, so they find a place to hide. They know the storm is coming, again, so they find a place to hide. It's the humans that get caught out in the storm and in the earthquake, right? Because we're kind of oblivious. We're kind of dumb about these things, but animals have these things figured out for the most part. So the donkey is seeing something that Balaam is missing. Then the angel of the Lord stood in the narrow path through the vineyards with walls on both sides. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, he pressed close to the wall, pushing his foot against it, so he beat the donkey again. Then the angel of the Lord moved on ahead and stood in a narrow place where there was no room to turn either to the right or the left. When the donkey saw the angel of the Lord, it lay down under Balaam, and he was angry and beat it with his staff. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth. Now, it doesn't say the Lord talked through the donkey. It just said that he opened the donkey's mouth. What have I, and it said to Balaam, what have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times? And Balaam, completely oblivious or something, answered the donkey, you made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I'd kill you right now. Sometimes you get so angry that you don't even realize what's happening and just respond. The donkey said to Balaam, am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you? No, he says. Then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell face down. So God explains through the angel of the Lord what the problem is, and Balaam is chastened. But notice that the donkey seems to be aware, knows what's going on, is able to even talk when God opens his mouth. These animals are smarter than we think. We just don't understand their language, so we think that they're kind of dumb. Sometimes it's we humans who are the dumb ones. So God is giving them a very understandable fear of humans because we're going to be hunting them down for food. One part that I find kind of funny myself, just because I read it, says, the fear and dread of you will fall on all the beasts of the earth and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground, and on all the fish in the sea. So you get that. The fish are going to be afraid of humans too. I wouldn't have thought of that. Everything that lives and moves about will be food for you. Just as I give you the green plants, I now give you everything. But the lifeblood, we have to stay away from. Do not eat the blood. God also starts capital punishment at this point for human beings. You kill a human being, you murder somebody, you will be punished by death. So God decided that it is wiser to put the murderer to death than to allow the violence to just keep getting bigger and bigger and more. That has some sort of deterrence. And he goes on to say, remember, he started by saying, be fruitful and multiply. And by the way, here are the rules. Verse 7, as for you, be fruitful and increase in number. Multiply on the earth and increase upon it. Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, I now establish my covenant with you and with your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you. The birds, the livestock, and all the wild animals, all those that came out of the ark with you, every living creature on earth. So, who is God establishing that covenant with? He's establishing a covenant with Noah, his sons, their descendants, and all the creatures on earth. I'll say that again. All the creatures on earth. This covenant isn't just with human beings, it's with the animals too. Verse 11, I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed because of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is a sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you. A covenant for all generations to come. I've set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life. Whenever the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and all the living creatures of every kind on the earth. So God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and all life on earth. So just in case we missed it, God repeats all the creatures on the earth 5 times in that one section, just in case we missed it. So, coming to the New Testament, if you're the Apostle Paul, and you're on a mission to include Gentiles in the church, you want Gentiles and Jews to be in a community together. How are you going to formulate the community guidelines? What are you going to use as the background to bring all of these people together as one? Would it make sense to formulate these guidelines according to a covenant that was universal from the very beginning of the restart of humanity on earth? Wouldn't it be something that Gentile Christians could get into? A covenant that God had made with all living creatures. So, yeah, he tells the Gentile Christians that you have to avoid sexual immorality. Well, where does that come from? Well, right from the beginning. A man will leave his family and cleave to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. And he tells them, don't eat what is offered to idols. Don't worship idols. There's only one God. That comes right from the beginning as well. The covenant was made while they were worshiping. They had offered a sacrifice to God. That's when he made that covenant. And finally, the Jerusalem Council, all those Jewish ministers, the Jewish apostles, had gathered together and also said, and by the way, don't eat blood. Comes right out of that covenant. And why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't there be a call to respect the sanctity of blood? Especially now that Jesus' blood had paid for our sins. That was intended as a signpost. This is something that is going to be very important. So when Jews and Gentiles gather together for a meal, some are maybe eating pork. The Gentiles, the Jews might be avoiding pork. But they'll both agree to leave the blood sausage off the menu. And of course, there won't be any idols kicking around either. But why am I talking about that long ago covenant? I mean, we don't really think about these things now, Christians. Doesn't seem really relevant, does it? All this, don't eat blood stuff. Doesn't seem very relevant. But I'll ask this question. When was the last time you saw a worldwide flood? When was the last time you saw a rainbow in the sky? I know one that I saw at least 4 of them. Some of them double, beautiful, beautiful rainbows. Pretty sure you saw some too. God takes his covenants seriously. All of them. The Bible is full of covenants. He makes a covenant with David. He makes a covenant with Levi. He makes covenants all over the place. He takes his covenants seriously. And you always know that he will uphold his end of the covenant. Just like he's doing now. No floods yet. I mean, the local ones, but he said, no more for the whole world. God keeps his word. So that's why Paul in the Jerusalem Council wrote that letter to tell the Gentiles, these are the rules. These are what we have in common. The rainbow reminds us that God knows how to save those who have found grace in his eyes. As Noah found grace in his eyes. He knows how to punish the unrighteous with the flood. But he knows how to save those who are under his grace. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And so have we. He knows how to save us. It's God, his word. I just wanted to leave us with that. Covenant is very important to God. He's made a covenant with us. In Matthew 26, he gets right at the heart of it. Verse 27, and he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink from this fruit of the vine from now on until the day I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Jesus gave his blood of the covenant for us. Covenants, as I said, are very important to him. So is the forgiveness of sins that he provides through that blood.